How's your jaw?
It was she who did it.
I'm going to take out my false teeth.
1972 grand final, off the ball. So it's not caught on camera, sorry Neil, but David's playing on Neil, and suddenly David's jaw's on the ground. And what is the truth behind this, David, if you're happy to discuss it?
Well, I learned something very fundamental that day, that you don't kneel your opposition, particularly when they're bigger and stronger than you. But look, there was a goal kicked at the city end.
Sid Jackson, it was the most magnificent goal you've ever seen, wasn't it? It was beautiful.
And for some reason, Neil started pushing me around, and I hadn't said anything to him. And thought, shit, what's happening here? And he kept it going, and I said, mate, you wouldn't have a spark jumping the gap between your ears. Well, he obviously took acceptance of it. A few minutes later, I was on my knees spitting blood and ivory. It was interesting because the goal umpire that day was Tom Rossiter, and earlier in the season he'd reported me for striking Peter Eakins. He made it blue because it was out on the wing, and he ran all the way out and reported me when it was actually Ian Robertson. He was 34 and I was 43. So we became, I said afterwards, I said, it's fantastic, you admitted your mistake, whatever. And we became sort of friendly after that. He saw the incident, and I think as a result, Barmy got 4 weeks. He'd probably get life
only
now.
2. Yeah, I would have got life. It's only 2, fortunately. Because we convinced them that Sheeds did it.
Oh, really?
Well, actually,
Yeah, I don't know. That was our argument.
well, actually, later on in the game, Sheets did get me with an elbow. But the other interesting thing about that game is that down the city end was late in the game, and the ball came in, and I flew for a mark half-heartedly because I knew my jaw was broken. Put my knee up in the air, and Royce got under it and pushed me straight up. And I ended up taking the most photographed mark in my career, and the one I least wanted to take. So when I got down, I was protecting my jaw. But yeah, look, it was a brutal game. But just talking about Purse, the masterstroke of Nichols in that game was to play Purse in the ruck and for him to go forward. Obviously, he kicked 5 or 6 goals, and Purse ended up being a terrific ruckman. Jezza, Wolsey, and Nick were all great players that day, but I think if they gave the Norm Smith medal again, Purse should have got it, because the way he changed the game and freed up Nichols to play forward, and not only did he play well on McKenna, he really beat him on the day and gave his first use of the ball. So it was a terrific game of football, and whilst I didn't enjoy it that much, looking back on it, it was great. And,
you're known for your high-flying marks, mate, but I reckon your courage deserves a bit of a pat on the back too, because most of us wouldn't go into the office with a head cold, and you've played the most brutal game of your life with a broken jaw. So thanks, Neil, for that. But
well, you can say that, but at half time I went in and I said to Billy Brigley, the doctor, look, the jaw's broken, it's hanging down here, and he said, yes, but Vinnie Waite's just gone down with a broken ankle. He said, you're going to have to go back out. So I said, I don't want to. Anyway, I played the game out, but I got to the end of the game, the siren went, I ran straight off the ground, went into the change room, I was the only one there, had a shower, and drove up to St Vincent's.
You drove yourself there?
Drove myself, there was no one there. They were all celebrating out on the ground. Went to St Vincent's and they x-rayed it and said, yeah, you've got a broken jaw. I said, oh, thanks, I already know that. But they couldn't do anything about it. And I thought that was painful, but later in the week they put wires on your jaw to bring it all back into alignment, and that was real pain, because it just ached for 24 hours non-stop. Wow. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
Following year, Vin Cottogio won the reserves best and fairest in the league in 1972. So he was an up-and-coming young buck from lived across the road from Princess Park. So he was a born and bred Carlton man. 1973, your first game, you start on the bench during the season. You play about 2 minutes. So that's your first game. In the days when you couldn't come on and off, you were on or you were off. So Vinny got the last couple of minutes. Your second game, you played just the last quarter. Then you got injured in the reserves early in the final series, and you thought that's the end of me for the year. And then the Carlton guys say, well, why don't you just come and train with us for these last couple of weeks? Grand final week, the key playmaker Barry Armstrong gets appendicitis. Another key playmaker, Trevor Keogh, does a hammy, and suddenly this kid who's just training and enjoying life and skipping along, suddenly, Vin, we're going to pick you in the team for the grand final for your first full senior game. What are your memories of that whirlwind few days?
Pretty much what you said. We played in the reserves final. That was the first week of the final, so there's another 3 weeks to go. And I got a bad corky, so I just went up to training just to get my corky fixed, while the seniors were training. And anyway, it was Keith McKenzie said to me, be good for you to train. Once the league come good, start training, it'd be a good experience, So I joined into training, and anyway, the week of the leading up to the grand final, I think Barry Armstrong had his appendix, and I think Trevor might did a. I'm not sure if he did a hammy that night or during that week. Yeah. Anyway, I remember training, and I remember Keith McKenzie coming up to me and just saying, "Train well, son, because you might have a chance to get into the side." And I thought, "Well, he's getting in there." And then, I was named in the side, and it was pretty much a whirlwind.
You go home to mum and dad, and guess what? I'm playing this week. I imagine that was a bit of a shock.
Oh, very much so. I don't think I was. If those players were available, naturally I wouldn't have played. But because those instances, I was next in line.
There's Vin with his family the next day, just before that game. It was amazing, and you had. Basically, up to that week, you'd been collecting cards, and you had Kevin Bartlett's footy card, and suddenly you're playing on him in the grand final.
Yeah, actually, I was saying to Bones before that I used to have a lot of the cards, the Carlton players and the Richmond players, all that sort of stuff. So it was pretty unreal that day. And Kevin was one of my little favourites, And I remember, I was quick enough to keep with him, and I remember him stopping very sharply in the centre, and turned around and he went whack and hit me straight in the mouth. And I thought, shit, Kevin Bartlett. So it wasn't just,
I feel better already.
Yeah. And Barney, I've told him that story, and he says, "Oh, Vinny, I wouldn't have done that." I said, "Well, you did, Yeah, so it was, it was baptism of fire for me. I think I wore that for a while. I didn't play well. It was a hard game. It was a tough game. I didn't help the side at all that day. So
You felt afterwards, didn't you? Nichols didn't really speak to you after the game, and you didn't play a senior game the following year, even though you again were. I think you were runner-up in the seconds best and fairest again. So you were obviously good enough to be getting senior games, and you felt that might have been held against you.
I think so. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I thought I probably was one of the scapegoats. I was playing fairly good footy. You expect to get a game, but anyway, I think after that I just kept working at it because I just wanted to prove that I could play. So it was hard, but I think I was fairly strong enough to get through it.
You come back and had a great career at Carlton later on, didn't you, in the late 70s? So.
I played some fair football.
Bit of a cult figure with the big afro and the speedy run down the wings.
Yeah, but it always helps when you're playing with great players. In this room today, the Carlton players, fantastic bunch. It's a little bit easier when you're playing with blokes like that, but the Richmond guys, they were great sides as well, So it was great competition.
And just 73, mate, when Nichols goes down in the opening couple of minutes, the one incident that wasn't actually probably suspendable, it was just an inaction thing that just happened. What was your thoughts when Big Nick thuds to the ground when Laurie Fowler cleaned him up?
I think we were shocked because Nick was he was probably our enforcer, and he was team captain, and he was so powerful because not only did it affect him as captain, it affected the way he made decisions, so the decision had to be made by the bench. But it was just one of those things that happened in football. It was a fair bump. Nick was off guard, which was unusual. He got up and kicked a goal after it, but he wasn't the same player after that. and that really had a big impact on the way we played on that game. But Richmond, you know, they really came out ferociously to make up for 72. When they thought they were going to win it, we thought we were going to win it in 73. So it was just how, as you said earlier, about how the favourites didn't get up in the grand finals over that era. And but it was, you know, again, it was a terrific game of football, and high scoring like the one before. Not as high as 72, but still a very high scoring game.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.